My name is Trayvon Clark, and this is my final presentation on racism. Racism is a stem from slavery, so I'm going to tell you about the originality of slavery. West Central Africa provided the majority of the slaves that were transported to the New World. All Africans transported into the Atlantic before 1519 disembarked at ports in the Old World, mostly Europe and the offshore Atlantic islands. Some of these Africans or members of their descendants migrated to the New World starting in 1493, the year of Columbus' second voyage. It indicates that around 1519, the first slave ship to travel directly from America to the Americas made its way to Puerto Rico. Slavery lasted over 400 years and still counting. Slavery is still an ongoing thing. Today you see it with how cops treat African Americans and the discrimination against African Americans. This aspect relates to other aspects in life because I myself is an African American citizen, and I have to be extra cautious of what I wear, how I talk, and how I even look towards a certain race of people. Drugs became a huge issue in the Black community and is a big reason of the destruction of Blacks. Drugs were dropped off in the Black communities to destroy the Black home. The racial differences highlight the uneven cost of the conflict. The rate of Black Americans in prison increased dramatically from roughly 600 per 100,000 people in 1970 to 1,808 in 2000 as a result of the implementation of harsher sanctions for crack cocaine and other narcotics. The Latinos population rate increased from 108 per 100,000 people to 615 during that same period of time, while the white population rate increased from 103 per 100,000 people to 242. Is this a global issue? This is definitely a global problem. Globally, dark-colored people are looked down and are always seen as threats no matter what the situation is. This problem is a bigger problem in the United States, considering the fact that this country was built by African Americans for the most part. Every invention that African American has came up with has been stripped from them and attached to a white man's name. Back in the early 1900s, Blacks had communities going, thriving communities, successful people, and it was all torn down, and the terror of Tulsa is an example of one of them. One of the worst incidents of white violence against African Americans during Jim Crow was the Tulsa racial riots in 1921. This level of recognition of the massacre, which leveled the Black Wall Street business district in the Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa, with an estimated of 191 businesses locations burnt down, as well as churches, schools, a hospital, and a library. Reportedly killed 300 people, injured 714, and destroying 1,256 homes is itself a significant accomplishment. Seeing it through a symbolic interactism perspective, many white people don't know how to control their emotions towards African Americans. For example, with the police force makes up approximately 65% of the police force. Most young Black boys being killed are from white policemen. Nothing changes with the police because there's no consequences but a slap on the wrist for them. As a conflict, this may not seem like a huge problem for most, but it is. The elites will never put an end to the systematic racism that goes on today. This doesn't affect the elites or the wealthy. They would be the conflict theorists in this type of situation. They feel like there are bigger problems, bigger things to worry about and control, rather than African Americans getting fair treatment in the country that they live in, that they were brought to. So the rich will continue to get rich and the poor will stay poor. The purpose of the prison reform system was to send young African Americans to jail. There were laws literally put in place for Black men to commit these crimes so that they be put in jail as much as possible. prison reform. Any modification taken to enhance the quality of life for those incarcerated, for those affected by crimes, or to increase the efficiency of incarceration by reducing recidivism rates is referred to as prison reform. The American prison reform movement got its start in the late 19th and 20th centuries and is still going strong today. Since the beginning of time, prisons have existed in various forms with various cultures employing a range of techniques to punish people who have violated the standards of society. The history of jail reform has lasted as long as these types of punishments. Oh, and by the way, the majority of prisons are packed with black men and boys. In conclusion about racism, anything that reflects the racial worldview which holds that people are biologically classified into distinct groups called races, that inherited physical characteristics are correlated with traits of personality, intelligence, morality, and other cultural behavior characteristics, and that some races are inherently superior to others. Slavery in North America and some Western European overseas colonial and empire-building endeavors, particularly in the 18th century, were driven by racism. The concept of race was created to emphasize the distinctions between Americans of European descent and those of African descent whose ancestors had been forced into slavery in the American South, by categorizing Africans and their offspring as the advocates of slavery made an effort to defend and uphold this form of exploitation by portraying the U.S. as a champion of human freedom with human rights, democratic institutions, limited chances, and equality.